Let's begin creating some UVs for our room and start manipulating them to get a real great reproduction of the images on the polygons. Before we start creating physical UVs, let's talk about UVs at kind of this scene level. Where's all this information stored? All these texture coordinates are stored in what's called a UV map, which is really just a collection of what are called UV islands, these big cubes here. This is a UV island, okay? And they're saved on a UV map. And you can find that map inside of our object's data properties. So go in this icon, and then it's right here inside of our interface. All UV maps can be given a name, and I think this is a good practice to make a name. So I want to call this one Room UVs. You can actually have multiple UV maps per object. I'm not sure if there's a limit. I've only gone up to like 4 or 5 on one specific object. And the reason why you want to have different UV maps is for different texture sets. More on that when you get to the more advanced character and creature modeling stuff. That actually plays a big role. For the time being, just a singular UV map is all we're going to need. Now, when you have multiple UVs, inside of your UV workspace, you get to access all the UV maps right here. That's what this is. This is showing you the UV map that you're currently working on. So it's a good thing to kind of file away and be aware of. Okay, so let's start by creating some UVs and some working inside of our space. My workspace is a little cluttered at the moment. We see a lot of information. We're seeing both the image, all of the UV islands inside of our three-dimensional space or our two-dimensional UV grid. I want to start clearing this up a little bit so I can see and understand specifically what I'm creating. With this image in the background of our UV grid here, it kind of clouds it a little bit, gets in the way, if you will. So let's get rid of that image. This is actually just a preview of the image that's associated with the material. If we go to the top of our workspace here, this is the image preview area. If we click on this little X button, the image is going to be removed from the grid itself. Now, we're not physically deleting this image from the scene itself. If you look carefully back inside of my three-dimensional scene, yep, it's still there. What we're seeing in the grid is just a preview of the picture of the actual texture itself and how the UVs are placed on top of that texture. We'll come back to this idea a little bit later. It does play a role, but for the time being, we can turn it off. At any time, if we want it back on, we just return to this exact same area. We don't need to open it. We need to access the image that's already associated with the material, and we can find that in this little pull-down menu. There it is, and we're back. Got made it real big, but it's back. It's back in there. So we get to turn it on and off, which is pretty cool. I'm going to delete it just for the time being, so I have a real good workspace here that I can see, because I want to be able to see my UVs and their relationship to each other. With that image in the way, it kind of makes it a little bit cloudy. All right, let's make some UVs real fast. So I'm gonna, this scene already came with UVs for the wall and the baseboard, but we need to make some big adjustments. On the surface, you're probably like, Pat, this is looking great. Look at the floorboards. They're wonderful. However, they're not. And the whole illusion breaks down pretty quickly once I start adjusting the UVs, okay? So if I move it, just using the grab tool, the floorboards move. It's kind of hard to see at the moment because we have both the polygon selected and the UV selected. I'm going to open Pandora's box. If you turn this off, just be aware, okay? Only you can prevent forest fires. So one of the things that I want to do is that I don't want to see the selected polygon in the 3D viewport. I still want to be able to select it and manipulate it, but I don't want to see the ghosted outline of the selected polygon. We do that through our viewport shading styles, our viewport display options, excuse me. And if we turn off this button right here, all of the on-screen gizmos and gadgets that we've been relying upon to define a selection are going to be disabled, okay? However, the selection system is still going here, and let me prove it to you. I'm going to select this polygon. Now watch very carefully over here in our UV space. The moment I click on that polygon, I get an orange outline around that UV. This polygon is truly still selected. We're just not seeing the visible icon of its selection inside of our 3D viewport. Be aware, this is something that will drive you crazy if you have forgotten that you've turned it on and off, okay? But it makes it a little bit easier for us to see exactly how our UVs are showing up on the model. So if we grab our UVs just with the grab tool, you can see its effect inside the 3D viewport, which is pretty cool. You're probably thinking, Pat, rock and roll, mission accomplished. However, not so much, because the moment we start, maybe we want our floorboards at an angle to the wall. The moment we start rotating it, yeah, you can see that we have some issues. That's because the UV island does not match the size, scale, and proportion of its 3D counterpart. If you look real carefully, in this polygon, it's a long, skinny rectangle. However, its UV is a square. We need to reapply the UV tools and recreate a UV island that matches the proportions of what we see over here. Let's just do it real fast. Don't even have to hit the undo button. I want to make sure that the polygon is selected. Remember, everything in the UV workflow is at the polygon level. We select polygons, and then we create UVs for them. With that polygon selected, we have some choices here. At the top of our screen, in this viewport right here, I'm going to scroll over. We have the UV tools right here in the 3D viewport. We have a similar set of UV tools inside of our grid, this pull-down menu. They're almost the exact same tools. These have a little bit more because they manage the placement of the UVs in the grid. The ones that you're seeing inside the 3D viewport, these are really for the initial creation. So think of it like this. This is where we create UVs in our 3D viewport. And then over on our UV workspace, the UV grid, this is where we edit, manipulate, and start to kind of massage the location of our UVs to get the best results. So let's do it real fast. I got my polygon selected. I can see that it's selected because I have an orange outline on the UV. Nice little confirmation, validation. And now let's physically create some UVs or a new UV for the selected object. Now we have a whole series of different commands, and we're not going to go through all of these, but there are a couple that I want to draw your attention to. We have unwrap, which we'll come back to later. This is a great tool. Then we also have projections and project from view. These are all creation tools. They're going to create a 2D version of our 3D friend. So let's do cube projection. And I'm choosing this one because the polygon that I'm working with is generally cubic. It's a rectangle, so the cube projection type seems appropriate. The moment that I click on it, it's automatically going to create a new UV for me in the grid. It's going to place it in the center of that positive UV quadrant automatically for me. And this is what I'm after. I have a polygon on the right that matches the size, scale, and proportion of its UV on the left. This is the goal. If we were to zoom in, zoomed in too far. If we were to zoom in here, we're not getting any sort of distortions or stretching. That's what we want to look for. We don't want the image to be warped and pulled along these weird angles because of its UV. In addition, if we were to now grab it, same effect like we had before. However, if I hit the R key to rotate it, watch what doesn't happen. Yeah, see how we're not getting that wild stretching? That's because the size, scale, and proportion of our UV matches its 3D counterpart. And now I can edit the location of that texture however I'd like. Pretty cool. And if I wanted to make the floorboard smaller, I scale the UV larger. It's the opposite. So I'm scaling the model, scaling UV, same keyboard shortcut. See how I make the UV bigger? The floorboards, the individual planks, get smaller inside the scene itself, which is pretty cool. Let's do the exact same thing for the other polygons inside of the scene. Let's grab the wall. There we go. I have it selected. I can see its UV selected here. And now let's do a projection of it again. Once again, I'll go to my UV tools inside my 3D view space. I'll do cube projection. Yeah. Now, we don't have an image on this material, so let's put it in there. When testing UVs, it's always good to have an image in there so you can really get a good understanding of the results that you're going to get. Let's go back into our material, and in the wall material, I'm going to load in a simple brick texture here that I downloaded from textures.com. I love textures.com. That one right there. Lovely. Ta-da! Okay, we're getting the correct projection. This is what I'm after. However, the scale is completely wrong, right? That these bricks are like the size of a small computer desk. So we want to go in and make an adjustment to the actual UV itself. And this speaks to the power of the UV editing workflow. We don't have to go in and add, texture coordinates. The UVs are defining those texture coordinates. If I scale this up, you can see that the brick pattern is getting a lot smaller, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Awesome. I do the exact same thing with the baseboards. The baseboards are so small that we're really not going to see the benefits of it here inside of this space. But you certainly could put an image on those baseboards and call it done. If I was to rotate that wall, maybe I want the bricks going up and down. I'm not sure if I've ever seen bricks going up and down, but maybe in this really cool space they are, which is kind of neat. And all thanks to the UV quadrants, or excuse me, the UV coordinates that are being generated inside of our UV map itself, which is pretty cool. So that's the basics of creating flat UVs inside of our three-dimensional scene. Let's take this one step forward and start exploring how we can create cylindrical ones with our paint can.